We serve those who are swimming towards the helicopter. We serve those who are pursuing better. We are serving those who actually want to understand their bodies. We are serving those who actually want to realize a life that's different, where you're not living in this anxiety, you're not living in this exhaustion, you're not living in this stew of chronic disease. Like, this is not like for the people that are like, hey, yeah, just give me the pharmaceutical, or hey, yeah, you know what, I've got every excuse in the book and this is why I can and can't do this. No problem.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today's guest is a health and human performance expert. He's a USA Today best-selling author and an international speaker. He's the founder of Own It Coaching, a coaching company dedicated to optimizing health and performance for leaders, executives, and athletes. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Today's guest is Justin Roethlingshoefer. What's up, man?
It's so good to be here, Bryce. I appreciate you.
I'm pumped that I was able to nail the last name on my first attempt.
It's so funny. I've got on one of my speaking reels, that kind of, everybody asks for that speaking reel when you're going to a location or going to do something. Totally. And in one of them at the beginning, I've got probably a 15-minute or 15-second segment that highlights probably 30 people saying my last name, and it's all 30 different pronunciations or dialects or something. It's pretty funny.
I like it, man. I'm sure like in school back in the day that just got butchered to the max.
Well, I always say that I was the smartest kid in kindergarten because I knew the alphabet, and then it just went downhill from there.
That's great, man. You're doing some really cool things in the space. Obviously, like taking a deep dive into data and wearables and understanding like a peek underneath the hood to help steer people in the right direction. But how did you kind of develop this curiosity for that space? Like, what was some of your athletic background and that then led to you being like, hey, like I want a little bit more here to get a little bit more specific with my training in my life?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, it didn't come from my athletic background. It didn't come from my time in the NHL. It didn't come from any of these things. It actually came from what many would consider your weakness or your flaw. And for me, being a kid that was extremely OCD, extremely high on the ADD list and dyslexia list, I had all of these things that people labeled me as a kid. And as I kind of like went on this journey as a fat kid, I was always made fun of. I was always teased. And this desire to understand this vessel, this tool, this vehicle, this complicated body that I lived in, I wanted to know more. And I just had a deep desire to understand it in an in-depth way. And I still remember as a 13-year-old kid, being a fat kid turned into an anorexic kid, turned into a heavily depressed kid. I just needed to find out what was actually happening in my body because no doctor could tell me, no therapist could tell me, no expert could tell me. They just wanted to put me on pharmaceuticals. They wanted to put me on different pills. They wanted to put me on different prescriptions. They wanted to put me on different protocols that they gave to everybody and throw these labels on me. And I was like, you know what? I need to figure out what's happening inside this thing because I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I feel misunderstood every single place I go. And if I can understand my body better, then I can maybe start to figure this thing out, not just for me, but for other people as well. And so I still remember as a 13-year-old kid, I said to my parents, and this is, back 25 years ago, so the year 2000. And I said, hey, for Christmas, I want a heart rate monitor. And they said, are you sick? Like, what's the matter? Like, why do you want to monitor your heart? And I said, no, it's so I can start to track resting heart rate, max heart rate, different training zones while I'm working out. I want to get pulse oximeter, start look at oxygen levels within my blood. I want to look at heart rate variability. I want to start to understand these things. And at this point, remember, a 13-year-old kid in this heart rate monitor, it's not like today where they're a dime a dozen all over the place. This thing was, I think, like $1,500. And very rare that you saw on anybody. And I said, no, like pool all everybody's money, and I don't need gifts for the rest of the year. This is all I want. And that really started my journey into this data component, and that OCD tendency that I had just literally propelled me to go deep and deep into while everyone else was reading comic books, I was reading scientific journals. While everybody else was out playing with their toys, I was playing with science gadgets like heart rate monitors and brainwave sensors and pulse oximeters, you name it, just to figure out what was going on inside this thing. And that was really the start of that journey for me.
Wow, it's so fascinating. The thought that comes to mind there, Justin, is people will forget what you said, what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And we're tribal creatures inevitably, and we want to be accepted. We want to be a part of the tribe. We want to be seen, heard, and understood. And inevitably we feel like the black sheep, which maybe later on in life proves to be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
In the midst of being 13 and younger, when you're just trying to connect and you're trying to be a part of the group, and you're isolated based on weight, based on physiology, maybe genetic predisposition, and then labeled these outrageous titles, which may or may not be true, OCD, ADD. It's like, no, I'm just different, motherfucker. It's like, why does it have to be this clinical diagnosis based on a pseudo questionnaire that then assigns me and my insurance company to then pay for pharmaceuticals, which come with this onslaught of side effects that you're not really telling me. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to fix you.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, I didn't know I was broken. I thought I was just a curious kid. It's experiencing something. And it's like, when I look at the spectrum of anxiety and depression, it's like, I'm feeling depressed. Let's explore why. Maybe I'm not actually labeled as depressed. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Like, these are feelings.
Yeah.
And when you zoom out and you get into the world of meditation and you look at feelings, it's almost like they're going to come and they're going to go. And like, we have the ability to not attach ourselves to these feelings. So we can sit with them for a moment and then cut that imaginary energetic cord and kind of let that feeling go.
Yeah.
But then when we have quote unquote experts, which to no fault of their own in the system, are learning, oh, when we see these characteristics, that is an indicator of putting this person in this category or this box. That fucks up the mind of a young kid. And it almost angers me. You can hear the passion in my voice of just like, now you're realizing, because you escaped that pseudo matrix, to be curious and explore and realize that like, oh, this is an opportunity to share these amazing tools with others because it worked for me. But for some kids, they might go down the other path of just completely getting lost in the pharmaceutical system, feeling misunderstood forever. And that might lead to suicide, chronic depression, or even ending up, in some sort of, holding cell at some point. What are your thoughts on some of these things that I'm touching on? Because I'm sure you've navigated that, being such a smart individual and understanding the various paths that you could have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a lot of those paths, and I kind of touched on it a little bit. Is that fat kid became the anorexic kid became the depressed kid. Went down the suicidal ideation side. I struggled with mental health for a long time, even while on the outside seemingly succeeding, seemingly thriving, coming down to the States on a hockey scholarship, being down here for schooling, getting my undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, doing my postgraduate research. You thought everything was great when on the inside there was still that perpetual struggle that was going on, and stemming back to, we all know, if we've done any type of personal development work or any type of therapy, that everything stems from what happened in childhood. Everything stems from what was going on. And so for me, a lot of my mission when we started Own It, when we started to get into it and really start to look at everything in a interdisciplinary, multifactorial, heavily integrated way, was not trying to answer the question of how do you treat something, which is what every other doctor is doing, every other medical practitioner is doing. I don't care if you're talking about functional medicine. I don't care if you're talking about even registered dietitian world or like traditional medicine world, it's always how do I treat something? And I wanted to get away from that. And I wanted to go, no. It's not about how do you treat something, but it's rather why is it happening? Why is it happening at the center of this? Because when you understand why it's happening, you can personalize and reverse engineer the process to get down to it and ultimately solve the problem. Because when you solve the issue that's there, nobody innately is broken. Ultimately, all that's happened is there's certain pathways genetically that have been opened up or closed. There's certain things that are happening from a habit, behavior, or environmental status that are creating some type of outcome in somebody's life. Or there's a trauma set that we have to ultimately reverse, and things that somebody is not even yet aware of. So if we can start to come down and reverse engineer this process, utilizing data to help open up the world of somebody's internal body, our bodies are like, we are walking miracles, man. Like the fact that we have 30 to 40 trillion cells synergistically working together at any given point of time to make sure that we can thrive and function in our life. Like that in and of itself is amazing. And we think that it's like, oh no, you just need this supplement. Oh, you just need this this night routine, this morning routine, this workout plan, this nutrition protocol, this immune system. Like, no. It is so much different than that. And our body has a language and it's constantly communicating to us. The problem is that we don't speak that language. We've never been taught that language. It's only ever been said as to use habit A or habit B, but let's completely ignore the thing that we're asking to do the act at the end of the day. And so this is really the piece for me that we and our entire team have just gotten on board with and been able to really show up and say, I don't care how you treat something. I want to know why is it happening. And when we know why it's happening, that's the moment that you start to educate, equip, and empower that person, that individual who's experiencing something, who's going through something, because for the first time, they have hope. For the first time, they feel like there's another side to the place that they're currently at. Yes, they might have to walk through a little bit of fire. Yes, we might have to push through something that's difficult. Yes, we may have to break some chains. Yes, we may have to ultimately get them out of a prison that they've locked themselves in. But there's an other side to their current reality. And it only happens when you start to see somebody, talk to somebody, understand what's going on, and ultimately look at their unique situation and use data to validate what the next step actually is.
Yeah, it's so well said, Justin. There's so many different intricate facets that I want to grab hold to. The first one being that I know you're a man of faith, and just kind of touching on what you said with these millions or billions of cells in our body working synergistically, and we just kind of zoom out, we look at the world, and there's too much organization within the world. Like, I'd love to categorize science, I really would, but after everything that's been going on in the world, and I'm new to the world of faith, kind of just observing, I'm like, man, there's something out there that's bigger and more powerful than us.
Yeah.
And when you look at all these different things going on in this miracle that is the human body, you can't help that be like, okay, like so much of this is understood, but so much of this we have no clue about, which we could say the same about nature. We could say the same about the ocean. We could say the same about outer space. And when you kind of take that lens, it's like we want to know. Our egos want to be like, oh, it's this. But let's be honest with ourselves. We really don't know. And you just mentioned a wide variety of variables and complexities. It's like there might be something going on that is subconscious. It might be associated with traumas. The body definitely keeps the score, which 100%. I'm sure it's a book you've referenced before.
Dr. Gabor Mate.
Totally. And it's just like, okay, maybe it is the food. Maybe it is sleep. Maybe it is our evening routine. Maybe it is our exercise or our food or the ideologies that we're possessing and this psychological or pseudo prison that you subtly described. But we don't know that unless we explore the human first, not the athlete, not just the performance, not just the data analytics. The data analytics are simply variables.
Yeah.
You also have to talk to the person, the individual. And so my question there is, where do you start? Are you looking at the symptom and then trying to reverse engineer? Do you guys have a baseline assessment where you're kind of grabbing data from people? And then how do you know which data weighs more than other data?
Yeah, very good. Before I dive into that, I want to talk momentarily about what you just talked about with like this faith integration, because I think oftentimes we get lost in the forest, and we're looking for that. You see it in marketing all the time, and Lane Norton talks about this often, where it's hard to identify the expert from the charlatan, because the expert will often say, well, it could be a variety of things, and not be very, be a little bit more vague in terms of where it is, because I don't know you. Whereas the
Because the
charlatan's
answer
like,
is
no, it's
always,
this.
it depends.
This is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it's all about. And this is the solution for it. And all of a sudden the consumer is like, wow, that feels really good to me. Like there's an answer, there's a response. And then you go and you pay 5, 10, 15, 25, $150,000 for the solution. And you're like, man, I was disappointed. I was let down. This wasn't what I expected. Didn't actually get me to where I needed to go, or what I was promised. And now you're left still feeling like, man, maybe I wasn't created to thrive. And so I want to come back to this component for everybody listening. And this is the way that I've been able to just really take scripture and this biblical connotation to what's actually happening. And we think that this is a health issue. And I don't think it's a health issue at all. I think it's a spiritual issue of what's going on in our country and what's going on in our world. When we start to look at the changes in our food, the changes in our environment, the changes that are in our health ultimately, because each and every one of us was created with a unique calling in mind. Bryce, you go and look at your life, you go and look at your ability that you've had from an athletic prowess standpoint, to go to the CrossFit Games 4 times, to go and create this amazing platform through an experience with your father, and now being at this place. Like, that has all been ordained because there's a calling on your life to influence and impact people at an elevated way. And you're going on this journey, and it's so beautiful to watch, of your experience for what it is that you're starting to see. Now, at the same time, there's such a goodness to your journey. There's such a goodness to the calling that's on your life. There's such a lovable impact that you have set. Well, guess what? The way in which you're going to execute on that is this tool, this vehicle that you're walking in. And if we actually take a step back and go, the vehicle and the tool that you are given, blessed with, to go and execute on this calling, and that's the only thing that you have, what do you think the enemy's going to come and attack first? It's not going to be everything else around you. It's going to be you. And so we have to realize that the war is at the temple, and the temple is our body, the body that we walk around in, because that's the only thing that can hold back or limit us from realizing the calling that's on the other side, that's realizing the calling that's somebody else's miracle, that's realizing the calling that ultimately can expose and allow us to feel full and like we're actually living. And so if that's the truth, if that's the case, if that's where we're at, then my gosh, we have to figure out how to protect this thing, because our life literally depends on it. And so that's where we get excited. This is the foundation of truth that we thrive upon, that we are able to then educate, equip, and empower people to take ownership of their own health. Because I don't care who's in office. I don't care who's out there creating great products or anything. If we ourselves are not willing to take ownership of our health, then we are simply going to be a flag in the wind that is moving and grooving with whatever policies are in place, with whatever experts or doctors say, because we're having what I call the ostrich effect, which is just keep your head in the sand, be a yes person that just keeps walking the yellow brick road, that whatever policies are in place that we're going to actually end up following. And so being able to take ownership of our health is critical. And that's why I truly believe that this is a spiritual component that comes in so heavily, because we are constantly under attack. And if we don't arm ourselves, again, we're going to be a victim to this. And so going back to your question of where do we start? What do we start to look at? We are, again, 30 to 40 trillion cells synergistically operating together. And so I need to look at what's happening at the cellular level, because cellular health is where everything starts. That's where disease manifests. That's where cells start to mutate. That's where dysfunction starts to happen. That's from disorientation starts to occur. That's where deficiencies start to show up. And so we need to understand what's happening there. Our cells need four things in order to function and operate in an optimal way. Number one is oxygen. Number two is the ability to remove toxins. Number three is nutrients and water. And number four is the ability to handle stress. So it has to have these four things. And so if we think about what these four things are all about, then now I need to start pinpointing how can I get data to tell me how each of one of these four things is operating. So let's go to number one. How is my cellular function from an oxygen level? What's the way we identify this? Well, VO2 max is the language of our body as to how efficient it is at utilizing oxygen. Yes, it's measuring oxygen at your peak output. That's the definition. But overall, a higher VO2 max means that this individual is going to have an easier way and a more efficient way of utilizing oxygen at a cellular level. Probably pretty important. Number two, when we start to look at the ability to remove toxins, well, there's something in the body called the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is like the car wash for your brain and your cells. It's 98% more active during REM and slow wave sleep than it is at any other point of time during the day. So what literally becomes critical is that we have and start tracking and focusing on deep quality stages of sleep. So REM and slow wave sleep, critical that we start to identify those. Number three is nutrients and water. Well, this is where I want to start to understand, okay, what are we actually deficient in? What is our body actually predisposed to? What does our body actually need? And that is going to be through a DNA, epigenetic, and cellular micronutrient panel, understanding exactly what we're missing so we can start to pinpoint that. And then number four is how our body is handling stress and strain, how well it's adapting based upon our lifestyle changes. And that is heart rate variability, the best, most universal metric that gives us an insight on a daily basis as to is the way we're living working positively, or is the way we're living working negatively to how our body's functioning at the cellular level. So immediately we have four metrics that have a deep language that our body's now communicating, that I can say, wow, this needs to be improved, this is good, and this needs to be improved. And from there, we can either validate the direction we're going, or it can say, hey, what I thought was right actually isn't. That's okay. But now I get to go and make a change and a shift so that I can steward this body that I'm living in more powerfully, and I can start to get the outcomes that I want: more energy, better sleep, weight loss, better fitness, better mental acuity, more longevity, whatever it is that you're looking for. But you've done it in such a proactive and precision-based way that it's Bryce's plan or Justin's plan, not some random act that we need to lean into. And now you're able to take action that's powerful, purposeful, and ultimately sustainable.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. I love the specificity associated with that and the four pillars that are seemingly like very crucial to total human optimization. My big pushback against that, though, is for most people, that's going to feel like too much. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. Like, I don't know where to start. This is too much. Like, what I'm hearing is like something that is 100% free is enhancing sleep quality to detoxify some of these cells and kind of be the internal car wash. And so a great starting point, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, is let's dial in an evening routine. Let's talk about the integration of magnesium. Let's talk about management of hydration so you're not getting up to pee all the time. Let's talk about limiting screen time and kind of down regulating towards more of a rest and digest version of our nervous system. So that way we can get into these sleep cycles that you mentioned to kind of be that internal car wash for clarity and detoxification. Would you say that's correct?
I don't think that's step one. Step one, I think, is even easier than that. And it's data collection. Let's actually, because at the end of the day, you talk about, hey, let's get magnesium. Well, cool. But now all of a sudden somebody could be spending 50 to $60 a month on magnesium, and it actually doesn't do anything for you as an individual. You could be actually going through a night routine and actually noticing that your sleep quality still sucks. And all the effort that you're putting in, all the time, energy, and resources that you're putting in, actually isn't getting you closer to what you're looking for. And so the first thing that I would actually start doing is getting something to measure sleep quality and heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the single most important metric that anyone can be monitoring, because number one is it's going to give us an internal biological versus chronological age. So it's going to help us understand, are we aging faster based on our lifestyle and habits, or is our body handling stress and strain really well and we're aging slower? It's super, super important for us to understand that. And then usually whether you're using an Oura ring, whether you're using a Whoop band, whether you're using a Garmin, whether you're using an Ultra Human ring, it doesn't matter what tool you're using. It's that you understand these two core metrics that, hey, let's go take your example of sleep quality. If I go to bed, simple 3-2-1 rule for winding down. 3 hours before bed, I stop eating any type of food. We have 400 times more melatonin in our gut than is produced by the pineal gland in our brain. So if we stop eating 3 hours before bed, it's going to help us get into that parasympathetic state in our body and help us get into the REM and slow wave states of sleep faster and stay there longer. 2 hours before bed, no more work, no more heavy decision making. Why? We know that mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, real or perceived, positive or negative, past, future, or present stressors, the body doesn't know the difference between. So if we continue to keep working, if we continue to keep creating, if we continue to keep ideating right up until the point in which we go to bed, we're never actually going to get into those that parasympathetic state as anyways, and thus keep ourselves out of slow wave and REM sleep. So again, 1 hour before bed, no food, 3 hours before bed, no food, 2 hours before bed, no more work or heavy decision making. And then 1 hour before bed, no more blue light. So eliminating computers, TVs, iPads, tablets, phones, because for every 30 minutes of blue light exposure after the sun sets, it delays melatonin release by up to 1 hour. So again, keeping us out of those deep states of sleep and the parasympathetic state of our nervous system. And so just that simple 3-2-1 rule, if we start tracking and you diligently start implementing that 3-2-1 rule, we can say, is it improving my sleep quality, meaning the time spent in slow wave and REM sleep? And is my HRV improving or decreasing? So if all of a sudden we see that our sleep quality has improved by using the 3-2-1 rule, but our HRV stays the same or decreases, immediately we're like, man, there's something else in my life. There's something else in my day that's actually suppressing any type of ability for me to thrive. Maybe it's the food I'm eating. Maybe it's that I'm dehydrated. Maybe it's that I'm out of shape. Maybe it's these things that we come back to: nutrients, water, and oxygen. There's something that's ultimately holding us back at the cellular level, and that becomes the guiding force. Heart rate variability becomes the guiding force. But at first, we have to measure, we have to track, we have to have something that can help interpret what our body's actually going through.
Yeah, and I love the comparison component that you're mentioning of better, same, worse. I also like the mention of the various track wearables that people can use to track and kind of get some data collection, because even if it's not totally optimized, something's better than nothing. And having a better understanding as to some of the things that are helping. How do you create a little bit of psychological buy-in? Because I would say most people are married to the rat race. They're stuck in this gamification of, I need to make more money, I need to provide, I need to pay my bills. A lot of that leads to, in a perfect world, you're speaking to a lab rat and you're in control of all these things, the 3-2-1 rule. You're in control of when people are in deep creative space, when they're exposed to light in the morning, when they're having a cortisol spike versus an insulin spike. I mean, just to touch on a few different things, but for people that are working or that have responsibilities with picking up kids late night and they're exposed to light in the street, or stresses, or just had a baby, obviously having ruminating thoughts of like, okay, maybe, I mean, thinking about you live in Miami, I live in San Diego, two of the most expensive places in the world. And so a lot of people these days are tinkering in the realm of side hustles or 2 or 3 different jobs. So it's like you finish one, it'd be perfect to go into rest and digest mode. But now you're like, man, I got to get on my computer and build this thing so I can have that side income to help provide for my kid to go play, club soccer, club basketball, whatever. How do you kind of manage some of those things? Because real life is going to be there. And I'd love to say like, hey, marry the temple first. We got to take care of this before we take care of all that. But it's definitely a challenge. And I'm sure you guys get a ton of pushback with some of those things of like, man, that's just not possible in my life. How do you manage that conversation and create buy-in?
I love that you brought it up because first off, we have to change the mindset of what optimization is, because we are not, and I'm not going to mention any names, but we are not in the business of perfection. Optimization is not the pursuit of perfection. It's the pursuit of better. And I think every single person out there, if you sat there and you said, hey, are you exhausted? They would say, yes, please help me. They'd say, hey, do you bloat when you eat and like you just don't feel well? Yes, I feel that. Do you lay down at night and just can't allow your mind to stop racing and you worry in depth and intently about a plethora of things when you just would rather sleep? Yes, oh my gosh, you're reading my mail. Do you have weight that you just can't lose and you feel like you've trusted everybody and tried everything? Yes, my gosh, it's so frustrating. When you sit here and you look at this, you don't need to do everything at once, but don't let the fact that you feel like you have to do everything at once stop you from taking the first step. And that perfectionist mindset that I need to do everything, I need to do this entire overhaul, it stops somebody from actually even trying to pursue something better. And so if you go to Romans 12:1-2, it says, therefore, brothers and sisters, use your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. That is your true and proper worship. So if you think about this, if you never step foot in a church, if you never read the Bible, if you never sing songs and throw your hands in the air, that's okay. But how are you living? How are you stewarding this thing that you've been given to ultimately go and step into that God-given calling? You talk about the mom or dad who's doing 4 or 5 side hustles just to make sure that little Johnny or little Sarah can play club soccer or ballet or club basketball on the road. Amazing. You're stepping in and you're looking after this thing that you've been given. Well, guess what? If you're not well, if you fall short, if you are unable to continue to keep doing that, have the energy and the clarity to do that, everything else stops. Because when you have your health, you have hope. And when you have hope, you have everything. And until you're willing to say, I'm going to take a stand and I'm going to do something different, I'm going to set a standard for how I live, and I'm going to try to tweak something and look at something differently, you're going to continue to run on let's call it the rat race, in a circle, trying a bunch of different things, thinking you're making a choice, thinking you're trying to do the right thing. But in actuality, because you haven't committed to anything, all those actions is a stacking of a bunch of compromises. I'm going to compromise my energy because I just don't have the interest of understanding heart rate variability. You know what? I'm going to compromise my ability to sleep because I actually don't want to understand sleep quality. You know what? I'm going to compromise my energy throughout the day because I'm just going to do what's easy, what's convenient. And so until you're willing to commit, and commit not to perfection, but commit to the pursuit of better. Commit to the pursuit of better for you, so you can have a better family life. You can have a better energetic life. You can have a better routine set up so that you can serve your family in a better way. You can serve your teams in a better way. You can serve your business in a better way. You can serve your kids in a better way. You can serve your spouse in a better way. You can serve the calling that's been placed on your life in a better way. Until you commit to that, your life is going to stay exactly the same. And if that's what you're willing to, and that's what you're wanting to do, then by all means, I'm not going to try to convince you. But if you actually want to do something different, if you want to realize something different, then by gosh, I am waiting and I'm expecting you, because I'm ready to have our team and help you go to the next level. I still remember we were sitting with the Navy SEALs. I might get emotional when I tell this story. It always gets me there. Watch them go through a day. And this was very early in our business. It was the end of year one. And what we had found, what we just really struggled with, Bryce, was talking to a certain person. Like, because what we do is, people say, like, who do you serve? Well, we can serve everyone. Like, everyone can have better health. Everyone can feel so much better. Everyone can understand their body in a better way and take ownership for the habits and behaviors in their life. And we can get personalized in certain things, like, and literally transform your life. Like, I've seen it thousands of times. Like, it's for everybody. And people would say, no, you need to niche down. You need to get a little bit more specific as to who you're talking to, so that they can actually come and, like, you can serve them better. And I was like, no, that's not what we need to do. But I was sitting there with these Navy SEALs, and we had just gone and watched them go through an entire day of different types of activations. And I was sitting there with the captain at the end of the day. And I said, Captain, when you go into a storm, there's chaos. There's lightning and thunder around you. There's wind. There's all these waves that are 3, 5, 7, 15 feet high. There's a capsized boat in there. There's 50 people swimming around. Some have life jackets, some don't. You've got a helicopter floating above. You're sending your men in. Who do you save first? What do you think he said?
Himself.
I thought he was going to say, I said women and children. So you said himself. He goes, the people we save first are those that are swimming towards the helicopter. Mm. And I got goosebumps again as I said it, because as he said that day, it immediately had a light bulb moment in my head and go, my God. We serve those who are swimming towards the helicopter. We serve those who are pursuing better. We are serving those who actually want to understand their bodies. We are serving those who actually want to realize a life that's different, where you're not living in this anxiety. You're not living in this exhaustion. You're not living in this stew of chronic disease. Like, this is not, like, for the people that are like, hey, yeah, just give me the pharmaceutical, or hey, yeah, you know what? I've got every excuse in the book and this is why I can and can't do this. No problem.
Wow. I love this answer, man. I mean, I said himself because I'm just thinking in a generality, like, in order for you to even have that thought, you have to take care of you in order to serve.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out and you look at it from a business perspective, and obviously from a Navy SEAL perspective, it's like, you want to serve the people that want and need to be served.
Yeah.
And that's an attraction as opposed to a chase.
Yep.
When you're constantly chasing, you just have to surrender to the fact that those people simply aren't ready.
Yep.
Or to echo the world of AA or addiction, it's like they haven't hit their version of rock bottom.
Yep.
And they think their way is working. And you talked about how the body communicates to us. And it's like, okay, whether it's in the form of weight gain, whether it's in the form of skin, losing of hair, change of nail growth, constant and chronic pain.
Yep.
Everybody wants to be like, oh, let me go to this expert to fix me, but they don't want to take that personal accountability of like, okay, what's my posture? Am I actually doing routines, or am I just feeling good and doing an altered state of consciousness, whether that's video games, dopamine, porn, alcohol, marijuana, like whatever the distraction is to kind of steer the ship away from the mirror that's looking at us.
Very good.
And then all of a sudden you have, health practitioners that are like chasing they're like, here's what's wrong with you. I see it. How do you not see that? How do you not see this? And all of a sudden it like pushes the people even further away.
Yeah.
Because they're like, that dude's just an asshole. He doesn't get it. I don't feel seen, heard, and understood. And then as a byproduct, it creates this communicative distress where everybody feels misunderstood and frustrated. When in reality, it's like, I'm here. I want to serve you. We can start with data collection. From there, we can enhance education to then equip and empower, as you've said. I love that, man. I think that's such a beautiful answer, and it creates such a great visual for people of so many different arenas.
Oh, thank you. It's been something that we're just so humbled that we get the opportunity to serve in this way, because I don't think there's a better gift that you can give somebody than your health. Because again, if you have your health, you have your hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. The person who has their health has thousands of dreams. The person who doesn't has one. I just need it back. I just need it back. If I just had one more day, I could do X, Y, and Z. If I had one more day, if I didn't feel so exhausted every day, I could go do X, Y, and Z. Like you just, I think we give it away and we take it for granted. And as Dr. Gabor Mate says, it's the body keeps the score, and there will be someday where it just can't withhold what you're placing on it anymore. There will be a day where the cup overflows, and when the cup has overflown for so long that the cup just tips, and it's like, dude, you didn't get diabetes overnight. You didn't get heart disease overnight. You didn't get Alzheimer's and dementia overnight. You didn't gain the 100 pounds overnight. You didn't get the sleep anxieties and the insomnias overnight. It was something that we earned. And we earned it through a series of habits and behaviors that we did either consciously or unconsciously. And there was a series of warning signs, a series of signals, a language that we chose to ignore along the way. And until we're willing to stop, pause, and truly understand that language, the outcome that we're getting is inevitable. I often say intentionality plus consistency equals inevitable outcomes. So when you have data that allows you to be hyper intentional, and you have a team around you that is able to hold you accountable so you're consistent, the outcome is inevitable. You want to lose weight? Just a matter of time. You want to get back to deep sleeps? Just a matter of time. You want to be able to thrive in an environment where you're running 2 businesses with 6 kids going in 60 directions, and a husband or a spouse or a wife that you're having difficulty with? It's only a matter of time, if you're intentional and consistent on these habits, that the inevitable outcome will be positive. It's only a matter of time. But are you willing to take ownership? Are you willing to step in and say, this is a requirement for me to do something different in my life, and the fruit that I'm experiencing, I do not like. The fruit that I'm experiencing is rotten. The fruit that I'm experiencing is not being produced. The fruit that I'm experiencing is actually dying on the tree. Or do we want it so that there's abundance and overflow? Do we want it so that there's more than you could ever imagine? And many people are going to be, well, I want the second, of course. Great. That's literally waiting for you. It's an inevitable outcome. But what it's going to cost you is intentionality and consistency. And so how do we do that? How do we put that into place so that it works for you in your life, in your season of life, in your circumstances, in the situations you're running into, in the cities that you live in the situation maritally that you're in the situation of kids that you have, in the situation of your living surroundings and your environment? Let's get intentional with that, because everybody was created to thrive. But the luxury to experience it is held simply for those who are willing to live different.
Totally. You got me fired up over here, man. I love the passion. I think there's so much value that you're delivering today. But in a world of I want the answers now.
Yeah.
I want immediate gratification. Intentionality, okay, maybe we can paint that picture. But I am being consistent. And then you zoom out and you're like, okay, well, the data doesn't say that. Or, when I self-observe your habits, it doesn't say that. But there's this subtle psychological perception that I am being consistent. I go to the gym 3 times a week, or, I log my fitness pal. And there's false perceptions of reality that I think are created where I talk to people all the time. They're like, oh, I am going to the gym. And so what I look at is everybody wants trash TV these days. I call it T. And everybody's like, oh, give me the T. But T actually stands for time, energy, and attention. Are you willing to put in the time to self-assess and own the fact that, okay, what I'm doing isn't working?
Yeah.
Right? In entrepreneurship and in life, you think, okay, find what works and do more of it. And you do that until it doesn't work anymore, and then you flip the script, or then you change pathways a little bit.
Yeah.
But most people are like, oh, like this is working. This is what got me from A to B. It's going to work to get me from B to C. And there's this unique stubbornness in getting married to what has worked in the past versus what's going to work moving forward. And things change. And like you talked about, habits. You didn't get diabetes overnight. Oh, all of a sudden you were doing this habit and it worked really well when you were a high-level athlete. You needed all that glucose in order to perform those high-stress things when you were younger and more metabolically flexible. But as you've gotten older and you're sitting behind a desk a little bit more and you're a little bit more full of cortisol and your plate's a little bit more full with family responsibilities and life responsibilities, maybe that way doesn't work anymore. And so how do you create that education of, hey man, like that worked, but it's not working now.
Yeah.
And you have to understand the why, because the last thing I'll say here is most people just want you to give them the answer. The amount of people that say, hey man, like a 1 hour or 2 hour podcast is too much. Just give me the 3 things. That's great from a marketing perspective. But like you said, that's the Charlemagne. That's not the expert that's actually trying to provide context.
Yeah.
So how do you create that education in a world where the average time domain of a doctor with a patient is 7 minutes or less? People want the freaking answer.
Yeah.
And our education system is a problem, as is our medical system. So where's a starting point for us to actually do this that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, where people can grab onto one thing? They're like, okay, this is going to start me in my journey because I have the hope, which unlocks everything else, like you said. And I think it starts with the spiritual component.
So good, man. I love the question. And this is exactly what we've been leaning into crack. And so in Own It, and the way in our organization has been set up is when you come in, when I talk about an interdisciplinary team, you're going to be working with your medical team, who's a medical advisory team of functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, and neuroscientists all together. So we have a team of 4. They oversee everything that happens. We then have your registered dietitian. We then have your strength and conditioning coach. We then have your cognitive behavioral therapist. So we have this entire comprehensive, integrated, interdisciplinary approach that looks at you as the holistic, unique being in which you are. And when we layer the data onto that, it now starts to give you a starting point where you have a team that holds you accountable every single day, because the data doesn't lie. So many people go off of feelings, emotions, and opinions. I could give 2 hoots about any of those 3. I want to know what the data says, because the data is independent. You have a great night's sleep, Bryce, you go to bed and you wake up, you're like, I feel great. Well, Bryce, you went to bed at 1, you woke up at 5. You're functioning off of adrenaline, what you're excited to do today. If you did this for 3, 4, 5 days in a row, in actuality, you've probably been doing it for months in a row, because this is how you're just operating. It's only a matter of time before something breaks. And that's what traditionally we've been set up to do. But what if we were able to educate you? And the way we do this in a free way is we do this through our newsletter. We do this through our webinars that we do weekly. We do this through my podcast. We do this through the YouTube content. We do this through the different guides that we give out to people. We have so many free ways that we're educating and equipping and empowering people. And the moment that we equip them and educate them and empower them to take ownership of their health, and they're like, you know what? I want the next step, which is accountability. which is a team, which is people to help me, which is people to help take me to that next level, because I've been trying to do this on my own and I'm struggling a little bit. That's when we've all of a sudden got this team set up that's completely interdisciplinary, that's going to walk you down this journey and say, hey, I'm not going to be a sage from the stage yelling down at you. Rather, I'm going to be a guide from the side. I'm going to hold your hand through this, and I'm going to help you see what you can't see on your own. I'm going to help you overcome what's actually been continually holding you back. I'm going to help you be able to break through the chains that have had you locked down, that continue to bring you back into this space. Because when we think about this, what ends up happening for people is it's an identity thing. We know what a thermostat does. Thermostat regulates the temperature in a room. And so if all of a sudden, Bryce, if the room that you're in is set at 70 degrees and on a really hot San Diego day, we open up the doors, it's 90 degrees outside, hot air comes rushing in, what's that thermostat going to do? It's going to flip on, and it's going to put the air conditioner on so that it tries to cool the room back to 70 degrees. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden, we have to realize we all have thermostats inside our body. So a lot of us are set at 70 degrees with our health, 70 degrees with our habits. And all of a sudden, you might get really motivated. You might listen to this podcast and go, my gosh, I'm going to start that 3-2-1 rule at night. I'm going to start working out in the morning, and I'm going to start checking the ingredients list and of everything that I eat, and it's going to be 3 ingredients or less. So you've now cranked you've now cranked the temperature that you want to operate up to 90 degrees, but your internal thermostat still set at 70. So over the course of the next week, you might start to drop off a little bit. Next 2 weeks, start cooling off a little bit more. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, you're right back at 70 degrees because your body was like, dude, you're not a 90-degree guy. Come on. We know that that's not who you are. You're the guy who loves chocolate before he goes to bed. You're the guy who sleeps in the morning because it's too cold. You're the guy that doesn't actually do the breath work because you think it's stupid. That's who you are. So over the course of 6, 7, 8 weeks, you come back to right what your identity says that you are, which is why in our interdisciplinary team, you have to have that cognitive behavioral therapist who's going to go mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, while you also have the physical side of the strength coach, the dietitian, and your medical team. Because how do you actually shift identity? How do you take that identity from that 70-degree point and change the thermostat to 90 degrees? Number one is you have to believe. You have to believe that you were meant to thrive. You have to believe that life lived differently is actually available to you. You have to believe that what you're looking for, that what you're hoping for, that what you're desiring for was actually created for you. The reason that you desire it and the reason that it's in your heart was because it was yours in the first place and the world gave it away. You were born to thrive, but the world taught you simply to survive. And so we have to take back what was ultimately yours in the first place. Number two is we have to have the intention. When I talk about the intention, so many of us build our confidence off of outcomes. You're trying to lose 15 pounds. Well, I only have confidence when I lose the 15 pounds. No, have the confidence day 2, day 5, day 10, when you're on your way because you have the intention of doing the things that are necessary. The reason that you don't have the intention is because you haven't fully committed. And so instead, what you're actually doing is you've convinced yourself it's commitment, but in actuality, it's just compromise. You're continually compromising and thinking that it is this disguise of what you're actually leaning into. And until you commit, you can't be consistent. And ultimately, because you can't be consistent, you don't have confidence. So if we reverse engineer that and you commit to something, it improves the confidence because you've put the action steps in place, you put the team, you put the accountability metrics, you put these things in place, and thus you have the confidence that comes along with that. Alex Hormozi defines confidence as ultimately doing the action steps that give you the results that tell you that you are who you say you are. Mm-hmm. And so at that moment, you've got the belief, you've got the intent, and then you change your association. You change the people that you're hanging around. You change the people that you're engaging with. And the moment that you change who you're associating with, I guarantee you, you can't be surrounded by people who have a 90-degree thermostat. You cannot be surrounded by a person who have a 90-degree thermostat and still operate at that level. You can't operate at 70 because they're going to increase that thermostat. They're going to change that for you because they're going to hold you to a different standard than what you've been in the past. And so when you can do this, you ultimately realize something new, and that's what changes. That's what moves you forward. And when you have that team of interdisciplinary people around you, you don't have a choice other than to get the inevitable outcome that you and I both desire, that you and I both want, but it's done in a very intentional and personalized way so that you can ultimately realize what living different looks like.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinneon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinneon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinneon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinneon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey. Man, that is fucking fantastic, man. As we wrap things up today, I want to jump into the business of wellness a little bit, because there is a subconscious pessimism where people may just listen to this and just be like, Justin, all this sounds great, but how am I supposed to afford the data collection, the doctors, all of a sudden this comprehensive team, be enrolled into the Own It family? How do you decipher between having people live intentionally and actually co-piloting their journey towards their peak expression? Is it through the conversation of, hey, if you don't want to be enrolled and you don't want to fully commit with a financial component and skin in the game, here are all our free resources. Use those to the best of your advantage to get your foot in the door and kind of tiptoe a little bit.
Yeah.
But as Matthew McConaughey would say, like, if you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah.
Don't half-heartedly do it, because you're just going to get half-hearted results.
Yeah.
But for some people, like, it's just not that easy. So how do you kind of decipher between the business of wellness and the actuality of the value that you create?
Yeah, it's a great question, and to be honest with you, it's something that me internally I struggle with a lot when I look at the marketing of what I see thrown out there. Everyone's got the miracle supplement. Everybody's got the miracle 3-month program. And it's why people leave disappointed and leave frustrated and are skeptical of a lot of things. And I think the coolest thing with Own It is I love it when people are skeptics coming in, because it gives me the opportunity to change that. It gives me the opportunity to prove them right in what they hope is right, is that this is a solution that can actually be something that's sustainable and long lasting. When we started Own It, not only did we want to make this affordable for people, but we wanted to make sure that it was something that they could have access to. And so what we ended up doing was we actually made it affordable through HSA and FSA dollars. So we went through, a year and a half, deep internal looks, deep internal processes of getting validated through the insurance companies to be able to use your HSA and FSA dollars to use our services. And so if you weren't able to pay cash for them, you've got these pre-tax dollars and these dollars that your company or that you're already investing into that are, again, available for you so you can use them. Because a lot of people don't realize that the majority of employers are giving you HSA and FSA dollars regardless. And so when you're using these HSA and FSA dollars to do this, at the end of the year, they're disappearing, whether you use them or not. And so the fact that we've been able to make HSA and FSA available to people has made it, number one, more affordable. Number two, for them to be able to get into it. And that was something really, really close to my heart that we wanted to be able to do so that people did have access. But again, you come back to like, where does somebody go into it? And I always go, your interest goes where your investment flows. And so
Oh, that's a good one, man.
Until you're ready to invest in something, like think about it. If you're a casual football fan and you're like, hey, there's a game on Sunday. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I might check the box score. I might do something. Throw $100 on the game, then see what you're doing. You're actually probably going to watch it. You're probably actually going to pay attention. And so where you invest, your attention goes. Where you invest, your interest flows. And so you have to start to realize that until you're willing to invest in something, the likelihood of something changing is actually pretty low. And so that's where, for us, we give more free resources than 99% of people out there, from the podcast to the webinars to the newsletters to I do an Ask Justin call once a month that I just get on for free and be able to just jam with people. There's guides that we put out through social media. Any single person that reaches out to me through Instagram, I'm sending them voice messages back that I can serve them in the best way possible. But there comes a point in time in which you have to say, I want to create change. You're going to have to invest in yourself. And are you willing to invest in yourself today to ultimately give yourself a different tomorrow? Or are you going to wait on yourself? And the future you is going to say, man, I wish you did something a year ago. I wish you did something 5 years ago. Or is a future self going to say, thank God that you made that decision? Because today, the fruit that I'm eating was because of the seeds that you planted 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. The harvest is plenty, but the working hands are few. And until you're willing to do the work, you're going to be waiting on that harvest.
That's straight gold right there, man. Your interest flows where your investment goes. That's a really special one that it's really important. It may relate a little bit to tithing in some ways, but it's something that's like you need to put some skin in the game so that there's a value add externally, but also intrinsically. And there's a reciprocation between the two parties. And you're seeing like, okay, I really want to do this. I don't just kind of want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to describe it because it helps both parties thrive. And as you know, any sort of compromise, any sort of negotiation, there needs to be a relative equality on either side. Otherwise it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. And at the end of the day, I always tell our coaches and I tell our team and I tell our clients is that I'm not going to come along with a leash and pull you where you need to go. I'm going to walk beside you and I'm going to guide you and help you and be along for the ride. But my God, your legs have to be working. You have to be walking. Even if your eyes are closed and you're scared and you're fearful and you don't know the direction, it's okay. I'm going to guide you and lead you, but I need you to be taking one step in front of the other. And it's crazy to lean in is like, as soon as somebody pays for something, how all of a sudden their legs start to work. All of a sudden they're willing to actually go and take that first step, that second step, that third step. And so I'm more than happy to walk beside you and give you as much free information as possible and continue to pour it out there so I can help you and get you started. And guess what? Here's the other thing. Like through my 5 books and through the podcast and through social media and through the guides that we give out and through the webinars, like I've seen thousands of people repeatedly, like come to multiple things and in different places. And God bless them. Some of them, they're self-starters. They're highly motivated. They've got incredible systems already put in place in their life. And it's changed their lives. Like, praise God. Like, that's so good. Like, I'm so glad. But there's also those same people that continue to show up and they feel they're in the same situation over and over and over and over again because they don't have that next piece. They don't have that next step to be able to go and put it into place. And the cool thing is once they're able to make that decision, once they're able to commit, it exponentially increases and expedites the results that they get.
Being fully enrolled in the process. And Matthew McConaughey hits it on the head. He goes, life's not fair. It never was, it isn't now, and it won't ever be. Do not fall into the trap, the entitlement trap of feeling like you are a victim.
Yep. 100%.
And I think when you fully enroll, you make that investment, it unlocks a reservoir of not only potential, but freedom to choose.
It's very good.
And then you can develop the confidence to have proof of concept, to echo your statement about Alex Hormozi, where you can look over your shoulder and you're like, I am who I say I am.
Yeah.
Because so many people out there are like, oh, I know what to do. It's like, okay, well, are you taking action? And those action steps inevitably add up bit by bit to encompass your character, your integrity, who you are when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is not, oh, I know who I am, I know what I want. It's, who are you not? Are you going to be somebody who's not of your word, but yet you say these things and you're wondering why you don't have confidence, why you're not losing weight, why you're making these poor decisions when nobody's watching? I think that's a really pivotal distinction. Totally. Is not just, oh, this is who I think I am. But it's like, okay, let's get proof of concept. And I like that you talked about feelings, emotions, and opinions, and how, you know, they may be there and be something for some people sometimes, but it's not the actuality of the data of what we're seeing over the course of 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks and potentially longer that gives you concrete evidence of your habits.
Yeah. You're bang on. And I'll give you a tangible example of this. So every month, again, kind of just with the webinars that we do and the focus, I do a challenge with our community, whether people are in the community or just kind of watching. And so for January, it was the 4-ingredient challenge. I said, every single food that you eat, we know that there's seed oils and everything. We know that there's complex ingredients that are chemically formulated to ultimately go. We know that the average American takes in 30% of their calories through highly processed ingredients. And so I said, 4-ingredient challenge. You can only eat foods that are 4 ingredients or less for the entire month of January. Coming into February, we're doing a fast food fast. So no fast food. I don't care if it's a smoothie from Jamba Juice or a salad from Sweetgreen. No fast food, like fasting fast food. Everything is going to be homemade. Everything is going to be grocery store bought. Everything is going to be these types of things. Well, there was a couple people that started and they're like, I'm so excited about this. This is really great. And it was all fine and dandy. It was all awesome until there was a little bit of resistance, until it became a little inconvenient. And as soon as it became a little inconvenient, what do you think happened? We reverted right back to the 70-degree thermostat in which they thought they were, because they couldn't change the way in which they were operating. They couldn't change the systems in which they were going with. You will always fall to the level of your systems. You will, instead of rising to the level of your goals. We know James Clear talks about this all the time in Atomic Habits. But at the end of the day, what does that actually mean? What it means is, are you willing to see what's on the other side? And are you willing to set the people up around you, the team up around you, the accountability metrics up around you, so that your system is crack proof? Your system is actually something that can yield the results that you not only desire, but frankly, that you deserve. And until you're willing to do that, you will continue to get what you've always gotten. And the only way to break out of that, the only way to change that, is to invest in something different and investing in you. I don't think there's a single dollar that I've ever invested in myself that I haven't looked back and said, thank you for doing that. I know it was a push. I know it was hard. I know it was a risk, but my gosh, it's in the right place. And the last thing I'll say on this, Bryce, is every single year I'm spending multiple six figures on coaches, personal development, continual education, whether it's in business, whether it's in marriage and my relationship, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in learning a new skill of some type, but I'm always investing in myself. And there was a time where not too long ago, I didn't have disposable income. I didn't have the financial freedom to be able to do it. And what a mentor said to me was, he goes, the fastest way to accelerate yourself to the direction and where you're wanting to go is to invest in somebody who's already there, who can ultimately time collapse and create the systems for you in order to help you get there faster. And I still remember I took my first $20,000 coaching engagement, put it on a credit card that I didn't have the financial means for. And all of a sudden, the struggle that I was having in my life, not only did it clear up, but it created an opportunity that reciprocated in a client that wanted me to work with them for 80. And so because I invested there, it came back to me fourfold. And that's what I want each and every person out there to understand, is the moment that you started to invest in you, invest in yourself, and making sure that you're stewarding this thing, that is when everything changes. Because what you're praying for, I want people to listen to this, and I want this to sit, and I want this to just resonate so deeply. What you're praying for cannot hold a candle to what you're called for. But what you're praying for, you're not yet prepared to handle. And it's simply because the blessings that will come from that will pull you down and break you, because you do not have the habits, you do not have the systems, you do not have the health, you do not have the capacity to take on what that blessing, what that breakthrough, and what that gift is going to require. And until your body is able to, until your mind is able to, you will continue to stay in this invisible box that you've created, that the world has told you is normal, but is actually dysfunctional. And until you're willing to break out, until you're willing to live different, you will not be able to realize the true calling that's on your life.
Wow, man. That's powerful stuff right there. And what comes to mind is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be what you've always been.
Yep.
And that marries you to the rat race in this circular movement pattern that never allows any sort of disruption. And the other thing that you mentioned is, hey, we had this challenge, this 4-ingredient challenge, this fasting and fast food that's coming up. And the moment there was an ounce of resistance, we resorted back to traditional habits. And what I hear there is, convenience leads to consistency. If you get the bad foods out of the house, if you get Uber Eats off your phone, if you make it difficult to do the hard things and make it easy to do the right things, all of a sudden you'll have compliance. Because at the end of the day, the compliance is the science. And in that execution over the course of time, combining the intention with the consistency, as you mentioned previously, all of a sudden you've now curated this beautiful life.
Yeah. 100%.
I love it, man. Where can people find you, Justin?
Yeah, so you can dive in and learn more about Own It at ownitcoaching.com. And then me personally, you can just reach out to me on Instagram at Justin Roth, Justin Roeth. Like I said, super active there. If you send me a message, I will always be the one to respond to you. Challenge me on that, because I love it when people call me on it. You're not going to get a chat bot. You're not going to get a Manny chat. You're going to get this guy right here in the flesh, because I believe that transformation doesn't happen through technology. It happens through relationship. And that's where everything starts.
I love that, man. What are some of the books that people can keep their eyebrows elevated to kind of search for some of the free education and some of the things that you're putting out there where they can kind of grasp hold as to how to change their life?
Yeah, my podcast is The Own It Show. So that's on all platforms. And then books is The Power of Ownership, Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Relentless Pursuit of Normal. There's Blueprint. There is the book Own It, Master Health, Wealth, Relationships. So those would probably be the first three in which you could just start and really lean into. They each have workbooks that go along with them. So just different stuff that you can really lean into. And like I said, if you go to onacoaching.com as well, you can gain access to the newsletter there, and just lean in and take what it is that you want, kick out and leave behind what you don't. And at the end of the day, hopefully we can help you, serve you, to help you live different.
I love it, man. Thanks for joining me on ALLSMITH today. For those of you watching or listening, please rate, review, subscribe, and as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time, guys. Thanks, Justin.
Awesome, Bryce. Thanks, bud.